Thank you very much for taking care of this every Monday, where you deserve. Please open page 135 because I want to start with the history of this prayer. Remember now, this is the Aleinu. It's called Aleinu. It's upon us. And this is the last prayer in the Siddur, in the Jewish prayer book, of all movements. So the Orthodox have the same, the Reform, the Conservative. There are a few times that we look the same, only a few times. Most of the time, we argue with each other. What else you can do if you're a Jewish? It's a mitzvah to argue with other Jews. So, page 135. I would like to start with the history. This is now the writing of Larry Huffman. And so he is the one that edited the entire series. So who would like to start reading? The first line, of course, is taken from the prayer. Loud.
I will.
Okay, let's see.
Who did not place us like the families on the earth?
Okay, so you remember this.
Yeah.
Remember this prayer we're thanking God who did not place us like the other families of the earth. Continue.
Until the Middle Ages,
Aleinu.
contained a further phrase.
Okay, now, until the Middle Ages, there was additional. What was the addition line?
For they unspecified others bow down low to vanity and emptiness and pray to a God who does not save.
Wow. So until the Middle Ages, there was additional line in this prayer, which expressed why. Why would anyone add this kind of a line in a prayer book?
To separate yourself from other beliefs?
Yeah, and also to be a little cruel.
Oh.
Thank you, God, for not making me like them. You can sense the anger. You can sense the need for the separation. And also the mocking of other people who are praying to gods that cannot help it, to a God, small g, that cannot help. So this was basically against idol worshippers. Continue.
Though originally a polemic against paganism, the line was interpreted by some medieval Jews to denote Christians and Muslims. Jews were subservient to both and at times suffered under both as well.
Yeah, so Jews were never in control of their life. They were completely powerless through many, many generations. And what is the weapon that the powerless people have? Except in praying for not being like them. What else you can do? So years and years, generations of Christian domination and Muslim domination. So until the Middle Ages, it was looked upon as just against paganism, but also people felt that it's against those people who are ruling over them. Jews felt this way. Continue, Nancy.
By the 13th century, Jews were particularly conscious of these two world powers because they had experienced the Crusades.
Oh, wonderful. No one expects the Crusaders. It's the line that I love from Monty Python. Monty Python had a wonderful piece on no one is expecting the Spanish Inquisition. And it will come in the middle of the different parts of their showing. So here is one of the reasons why Jews kept this a little bit longer. What happened in 1096? What happened, Nancy?
In 1096, crusading army
Now you go to page 146.
that had decimated Rhineland Jewry.
Wait, you already found it. We are still searching for that. but this is what happens when you have so many scholars on each page. You don't have the choice. So page 146, Hoffman, it's in the middle of the page. Yes?
That had decimated Rhineland Jewry, went on to establish the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem.
Yeah, so how much time are you guys spending on the Crusades? What do you know about the Crusaders? Not much, yeah. I mean, this is one of those chapters that is not really pleasant to study and learn in when you have a tri-faith initiative.
We do
Are you
know-
guys planning another crusade? By the way, but it's also offensive when I hear it coming from the president. You know, from time to time they say words that maybe for the simple ear doesn't make any, I mean, the word crusade, when I hear it, it's problematic for me, and hopefully for you too. We are not anymore in those marches. That was one of the bloodiest marches that took place because those Christian forces destroyed everything and killed everyone all the way. So you have the Rhineland, and it was decimated. Oh yeah, continue.
By 1198, that kingdom had again been taken over by Islam.
Yeah, so you, in a way, you have a celebration. That's how Jews were so happy when Martin Luther came. Why? Why would Jews be happy when Martin Luther came?
Funded the Crusades.
Yeah, so hey, it's over. It's over. Only to be fallen into the hands of the Martin Luther. I mean, after a while, he was very positive in welcoming Jews in the beginning. Why? He needed enemies. He needed to have armies against the Catholics. And then after a while, when he saw that none of them converted, he, of course, went and tried to convert us. So, go on. Then the Muslims come in 1198. Go on.
The ongoing war between the Muslims and Christians suggested to some that the end of times was near. German Jews especially looked for hints in ancient texts about their current reality.
Yeah, so you hope when the Muslims come that this will be what? Armageddon, the end of the world. So then you start writing a prayer for the end of the world. On that day, the Lord shall be one, and his name shall be one. So this is part of what they wished as a result of the forces that emerge now, the Muslims and the Christians, hopefully fighting. The Jews never had any aspirations of creating an army. I mean, some people need to understand that what's going on in the state of Israel, and especially in the relationship to the Palestinians, comes as a result of being so many thousands of years powerless. I think that if you have a state that exists only for 70 years, you still need to learn how to live with optimal power, and I think they're still struggling. The Israelis are struggling with what exactly to do with this amazing power that we accumulated. It's not a secret. Israel has 5 to 7 atomic bombs. At any time, we almost came to using one atomic bomb in the Yom Kippur War. Yom Kippur War was one of those wars that was devastating because the armies of the Arab countries were cutting Israel in half and then being able to engage war only with half of the country in each side, and it was pretty abysmal condition. And the finger was very close to the button for pushing something. Thank God nothing happened. But how do you deal, being a Jew for so many generations, completely powerless, and suddenly having amazing power that is being sustained by the United States? What do you do with this? Yes?
I'm going to ask you a question because there's an intellectual quarrel going on now in the United States between Steven Pinker, who is comes from a Jewish background. He's a famous scholar, and he is arguing that we are, over the last few generations, we have made tremendous strides in combating death in war. And this is causing a conflict because he argues from an intellectual, psychological perspective, saying that the human species are not nearly as cruel as they were in past times, suggesting that we're changing human nature.
Hallelujah.
Well, that's what I would say. But, and the greatest criticism he gets is primarily from Jewish scholars. Now, the issue here is whether we can change the human being. He thinks
to be a peaceful, loving human being.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it depends what area of the globe you dwell in. I mean, there must be some kind of a reason why God will select that tiny little piece of land in the midst of 400 million Muslims. I'm sure she selected it because she wanted to laugh. So, well, first of all, I think the Jewish intellectual are arguing with him because he's Jewish. I mean, Jews always have to argue with each other, so that I'm not worried about it. Well, I have not seen signs of this in the Middle East. Actually, there is more fear about the role of Iran and the role of Iran now being part of Syria. Russia is having difficulty removing the Iranians from Syria. And this is a huge fear that Israelis feel because the Iranians are crazy.
I certainly do not have any kind of an answer.
Well, we just hope. We just hope that he's right. We are less savages. I mean, are we improving on who we become?
Well, on that question, I do not think our human nature has changed one iota since the beginning of creation.
Doug, isn't his study just data compilation, that the data looks better in many parts of the world? I haven't read his psychological.
Well, I've been reading him for 25 or 30 years.
Okay, so you've seen an evolution.
He is a very good psychologist as a scientist. Now the problem though is that he can cite lots and lots of data. The issue though is how what I call the mind works.
Yeah.
Now the mind doesn't work like where the scientists can get at it quickly by observing. We have to use such concepts as intuition and inherent faith. All these issues are what we call in the social sciences subjective issues. They deal with the person that is not verified by concrete evidence. It's what you think and feel.
The best evidence is this class. I mean, how many years ago those classes did not happen. So that gives you some hope. So maybe the world needs to change. In Jewish tradition, there is a belief, there's a story, there's a narrative about the 36 people that the world rests upon. There are 36 people that are called Lamed Vav Tzadikim. They are the righteous individual. They don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. But anytime one of them dies, they are replaced by another righteous individual. And so 36 in Gematria, in numerical Kabbalah, is double 18. 18 is high. when you don't know what to give a child, a Jewish child in a bar mitzvah, so you give 18. Why 18? $18. But multiplication, you can do 36 and on and on. Why 18? Because it's made out of 10 and 8. So 10 is Yud in letters, numerical letters, and 8 is Chet, the letter Chet. Chet and Yud is the beginning of the word Chaim, life, L'chaim. You guys know this. How many times you went to Fiddler on the Roof? That's the only Hebrew word that all non-Jews know. L'chaim, you know. So Chaim is life. 36 is double 18. So the world rests upon their shoulders.
I would only counter with the current situation we're having in the United States right now and dealing with all these children from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, thousands and thousands, and we automatically, except for about 15%, directly send them back. About 85% of those children are directly sent back to those three countries. Now we'd have to ask, why are thousands of young children coming to America, many without any parents, and then we turn right around and send them right back? They don't even get a chance to apply for some form of reprieve to stay here. I mean, I just cannot find any kind of compensation there on the part of the United States.
So this is another idea why the strength of the tri-faith is there. We can put together our social justice committees to start really seriously tackling issues like that. They are sent back because all of them are going to vote for the Democratic Party. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. But there's for him to come during the weekend. For him, and we know who the him is. For him to come and say, "Oh, the Democratic Party betrayed the Jews. The Democratic Party is not going to be anymore. Come to me." In a way, he says, "Come to me, vote for us. We will." Crazy to make from every issue such a political piece.
He said the Democrats hated the Jews. He used the word hate.
Hate, yeah.
Yeah, he hated the Jews.
Yeah, he said it so many times that every time he changed what he said. But yeah.
Rabbi, that doesn't bother me as much as having people believe that. That's what bothers me more. It's okay that he's crazy, but that people believe him bothers me way.
I think there will be people that definitely accept whatever he says as truth. By the way, I don't know how many people read Frank Bruni from the New York Times on Sunday. So there is this amazing writer, and too sad that he's going blind. But anyway, he wrote a beautiful piece connecting between the anger of people not doing vaccination to the messages that are coming from the White House. If you doubt everything, and everything is a fake news, of course it's easy for people to go and deny the medical information that is coming about vaccination and say it's fake. So after a while, everything is fake. So where is the truth? How do you look for the truth, and how capable you are to denying it and then risking your children by not giving them vaccination? So if you have the New York Times, get this article from Frank Bruni. He's a wonderful writer. It's like nothing better Sunday morning. Winter outside, you don't want to go out, and you open the New York Times. There's no better gift. No better gift.
Rabbi, shouldn't we be coming here on Sunday morning?
I don't have to come here on Sunday morning. I have my coffee and the bagel, and it's beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, you should continue coming here. Read the Sunday New York Times in the afternoon. You don't have to read it in the morning. But get it. Okay, Nancy, please, I interrupted you. Continue.
Okay, in that historical context, Aleinu was mined for hidden meeting, leading Abraham ben Azriel of Bohemia in 1234 to write, I have heard that we should say to vanity and emptiness because...
The Gematria. Okay, those of you who are interested in Kabbalah, Gematria is the numerical value of each of the Hebrew alphabet. Gematria. That's when you change letters into numbers. And what do you do? So here's an example, beautiful example. How do I know that when you drink wine, secrets come out of your mouth? Too much wine can make you vulnerable, make you be not really controlling your tongue. So, in Hebrew, secret is sod, samech vav dalet, 3 letters. Their value, when you add all the letters in the numerical value, is 60. Guess what? Wine, if you add the letters, 3 letters of wine, you get to 60. That means that secrets equal wine. Don't drink wine. By the way, those the people who are creating these people that have too much time. They're rabbis. I mean, this is a rabbi, 12th century, 1234, that maybe has too much time. The wife takes care of the children, all 12 of them, and the rabbi has time, and that's what he does all day. So in addition to teaching Torah, he just makes calculation. By the way, how did we know that there will be disaster in the year 2000? I don't know if you remember. You remember what we were worried about, the computers?
Yeah.
2000 was the end of the end of time. There are people that do the same. You sit all day with the numbers and you calculate when the Messiah will come, or the Armageddon will come. And then you'll go to their churches and then you give them money to continue reciting those nonsense. But for them, it's not nonsense. One of those days, it will happen when they say, God forbid. Yes?
See if you can find a connection here. Now, when we developed the computer, we called it artificial intelligence. Now, artificial means it's not real. Okay? So it's not real intelligence. No, it's not real intelligence because it is only operating on mathematical formula. Now, when you make reference to the numbers, and so we try to understand the meaning of numbers is quite different than the meaning of human flesh. You don't see anything with a number except however someone printed the word. So it's already a kind of strange abstraction. So now if we can understand that if we're praying to a God, in my mind, then we already have some kind of, at least, concept, not necessarily a word. Now the concept is simply something going on in the mind, in my mind. But it may very well be replicated by others in their minds. Now, when you're in the mind, you are not into numbers. You are into, at best, images.
As long as you still come to conclusion that there's only one.
Well, and that makes it easier for you.
Yeah, so that's why the Shema has a number.
Uh-huh.
That's the only thing that has a number. That we, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And the tradition is to try to prolong the Echad, the one, as long as you can. So there are some Hasidic circles where they sing Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That's how they do it. One. Watchword of our faith. Continue.
No, I don't really know what else I can say to this at this point. I mean, I think that you just helped me understand the concept of one, because all that you are is a one.
I definitely, when I say the Shema, and I'm conscious of this, and some people close their eyes because they want to experience that sentence without being influenced by whatever they see. They put sometimes their hand on their eyes.
And that adds, in my mind, to the way in which we can shield ourselves. So just staying in the mind, because when you close
With ignoring everything else.
everything else, and so then you're not using your senses. You've shut off your first sense of sight.
When you come to the prayer and you recite the name of Jesus Christ, what happens to your mind? I mean, is Jesus Christ just there? I mean, is there intentionality? Is there an awareness, completely awareness in the existence of that character? Or it becomes a routine,
Or like a mantra.
like a mantra?
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting conversation that we should have. Yeah.
I would only add to that for myself, personally, and I'm not sure why I'm doing this, but
God makes you do it. God definitely makes you do it.
anyway, whenever I was active in a Christian church, when the notion of Jesus came, the concept automatically came to me, just as it did as you were asking, is the concept of love came to me. That was the first concept.
Beautiful.
I grasped.
Beautiful. Instead of seeing him on a cross bleeding.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I walked to many Catholic churches in my life, and I don't know how people go to that church and having the cross, and on the cross there's actually a figure, and there are nails, and there are blood. I mean, do some people see that instead of the love? Is there love coming first, or is it the suffering?
I have an answer to that, Rabbi.
Please.
Did you ever know Father Hauser at Creighton
Of
University?
course.
Yes, okay, this is Father Hauser's explanation. He said, when Jesus was on the cross, God was with him in his suffering, and God will be with you in your suffering also. And that, he said, when I see the crucifix, that's what I imagine.
That God is with me.
That God is with
Yeah.
me in my suffering, yes. So that has totally changed my feeling about that corpus on the
Beautiful.
cross.
So there is also, this is a Jewish notion too, because we ask always the question, where was God during the Holocaust? And the answer comes from philosophers and some people that think about this a lot, that God was with you in the crematorium. And people take it a little bit further by saying God also evaporated in the Holocaust through the chimney. And then for them, God doesn't exist anymore. God died in the Holocaust. So you have people that walked out as survivors that believe in the existence of God, and then you have other people that came out, and for them, God is dead. And it's a fascinating conversation with them. Painful conversation. And then you have some people that, as a result of the establishment of the State of Israel, found Israel as the secure haven, only to go there and have wars every once in a while. There must be a lot of humor in our life. I want to have, when I walk to a synagogue or I walk to a church, and that's why this church is so comfortable, because you guys don't have the bleeding nails, which I don't want God only in my suffering. I want God in my joy and celebration. And this is I think what Judaism is capable of teaching, and that's why it's important to have that component in the tri-faith. Even despite everything that happened to us, you know, the Crusades have more than one march into Jerusalem. I'm amazed sometimes about the strength of Judaism in still being able to be optimistic. I'm not sure where we are coming with that optimism, but it's there. And now I can hear it. I go to weddings that are of Christians, and they have Ava Nagila. I love it because the band knows that song, and they just don't know why the chairs are up. So it's funny. It's funny. The tradition is, of course, especially in the last child that is getting married, to put the parents also, and you put crowns of flowers over their heads, because now they're done. They don't have to worry anymore. Every child is married. Yes.
You know, at one point, I can't remember who I was listening to, but they were talking about, they discovered that the people who survived better in the camps during the Holocaust were people who could relate, I can't get the word.
To other people.
Create a relationship.
With other people.
With other people.
That was Frankel.
Which is, oh, is that, okay, that's where it comes from.
Definitely.
And that's been a theme here quite a bit, is that God is in our relationship
Absolutely.
to each other.
Absolutely.
And not to minimize the Holocaust, because a lot of people didn't get the chance to do that. But
To do what?
I just thought to form a relationship.
There was no
just
time.
Immediately dispose of
There
it.
was no time.
Right,
Also, they
right.
needed to survive. So
But-
survivor was the main goal of those people. And when you survive and you want a piece of bread, you will steal the piece of bread from the other prisoner. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a really big theme here in this church that
Totally.
is one of the places we find God is through our relationship, taking
Well,
care of each other,
I just gave.
joyfully
But
celebrating.
I'm introducing to you another place where you discover God, in the text.
Right.
I mean, text and relationship are leading forces in discovering God's presence.
And joy
That-
is part of that too.
Of
There's
course.
not just suffering.
That's how we are not allowed to
Right.
study by ourselves. When it comes to Kabbalah, that some of you are mentioning, there are rules. I think with your age, I think all of you are okay. You passed the age of 40. So you're okay with 40 and plus. But then you have to study with other people, because you never know what Kabbalah can do to you alone. It can lead you to some esoteric places in your mind that you are going to get lost. And so it's good to have someone pull you down in case you start elevating yourself through the magic of mentioning all the names of the angel. You know, there are 75,000 names of angels in the Talmud. And if you know all of them and you recite them and you remember all the names, wow, you cannot believe what heavens are going to be open to you. Also, if you drink a lot, you get to the same. But then worry about secrets. Okay, Nancy, continue.
Okay, so he's talking about vanity and emptiness. And he said, so anyone who believes in these two pray to vanity. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped.
It's
one.
okay.
I have heard that we should say to vanity and emptiness because the gematria, the numerical equivalent of these words is equivalent to Jesus and Muhammad.
You see, they spent some time and came up with the value, numerical value of Jesus and Muhammad, and it's equal vanity. Now, it is possible they added, so Yeshua, Yeshu, in Hebrew, Yeshu is Jesus, Yeshu. His Hebrew name was Yeshua, which is salvation. So his mother called him for dinner, hey, Yeshua, come, or Yeshu. And Yeshu is Jesus in English. So she gave him the name that is also Joshua, the person that came after Moses. So, because in the name, Yeshua is already built-in salvation. It's interesting. Was the name created by his mother at the baby naming, at the circumcision, or the name came in the New Testament because they wanted to come up with a messianic hope for the people of the New Testament? Yeah, I mean, so you never know those kind of things. I'm sure she called him a bubale, a doll, you know. I call my grandchild Gabe the Babe. Yeah, and if one day someone is going to call him Gabe the Babe because of the name. Continue. So anyone who
believes in these two pray to vanity and emptiness. Such interpretations were known to Christians, and in the 14th century, an apostate known as Bishop Peter.
Okay, apostate. What's an apostate? That's a Jewish person that converted to Christianity. Apostate. Those were the worst kind of individuals. Because why? Why would someone convert to Christianity in the 14th century? To stay alive, to have a job, by the way. Jews changed their names in order to be accepted in times of quotas into some universities in America. There was no other way to do it. Jews had to create a country club that is dead now. Yes! I'm the only one that is thrilled about the death of the golf course. But that's why they created hospitals, to allow Jewish doctors to function, which turned to be okay because those hospitals now are capable of creating enough funding for federations to send kids to Israel to do anything for the Jewish community. In Denver, they sold the Rose Hospital. You have hospitals in New York that were done just for Jewish doctors. But we always had a group of Jews, a very small group of Jews, that found it, I mean, there was no death issue in America. There was not being accepted to university, which in a way is death for your career, if you want a career as a doctor or as a lawyer or whatever. The relationship between the Jewish community in Omaha and Creighton University is amazing. Jews will never forget that Creighton allowed Jews to enter into the college, to be able to be educated. There's a big bust of Milt Abrahams, a lawyer. You remember Milt? He was a member of Temple Israel. And so they respect him. And he loved Creighton because it was an opening door for him to become a lawyer. So this guy, Pesach Peter, by the way, they all changed their name. Pesach. Pesach is a Passover. So his Hebrew name was Pesach, Passover, but then he got a middle name, Peter, which I'm sure it's not the name that his mother gave him. And so what happened? Yeah, Nancy, what happened with this guy?
He charged the Jews with reviling Christianity in their worship.
Yeah, so he went to the Christian authorities of the city and showed them the prayer that we just discussed. And it says, thank you, God, for not making me pray for, this is about Jesus. And of course, what happens usually when a Jew gives up other Jews? They're going to be destroyed. They're going to be a pogrom. So we always said, and it's every society, every religion has those people inside the religion that are really the enemy. And we need to learn how to deal with this. So for example, one of the prayers that we recite in the 19 benedictions during the day, during the week, is a prayer that actually was to identify people that were sent by the authorities to spy on the congregation. So there was a prayer of warning the people that came to services that it is possible that in the audience, in the people who are here, are some people that are there just to spy on the congregation. There were people, non-Jews and Jews, that were fluent in Hebrew. So there was always the fear that that's what will happen. So you have to be careful. For example, on Passover, there is a tradition of opening the door for Elijah. But that's the explanation today. Let me tell you originally why the opening of the door took place. The opening of the door took place in Spain and Poland because you didn't know if at that moment a body of a dead Christian child is going to be thrown to the yard, and then the accusation will come. The Jews used the blood of the boy to make matzah. So there was a tradition because there was a courtyard. So if you open the door, the light from inside will be showing you if there is some kind of a hidden story. After a while, nowadays, we don't have this accusation anymore. That's how we connected with you guys. So you keep us safe. So now, but the tradition continued, and so now you have to find a new meaning for the opening the door to allow Elijah to come. So Elijah became the pronouncer of the world to come. Elijah is you know the story of Elijah from the Bible. What happens to Elijah? Read your Bible, guys. The old one. Not only the new one. There's so much wisdom in the old one that needs to be told you about. But Elijah disappears. There's a chariot that comes from heaven.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he is invited to the chariot and goes to God. So he never died. So I can use the image of a prophet that never dies to continue plugging him in my tradition. He's my Santa Claus. That was a brilliant, by the way. Brilliant in Christianity to create that character. Because it adds to capitalism so well. This is the weapon against socialism that everyone is worried about. So you put him there and everyone has to buy gifts. You made a lot of Jewish kids very jealous. Jewish kids needed then to have something equivalent. So we have Hanukkah. So Hanukkah is a good place to compete with you guys. Because we have 8 days, and now every child, every Jewish child, spoiled Jewish child, expect a gift every night. So we can compete. And then capitalism becomes even stronger. Okay. So I can give you a lot of Jewish traditions that are coming as a result to cover up old customs from different communities. So when you have Jews spread all over the world, you have different traditions. For example, Passover. I'm a Sephardic Jew, so I can eat rice on Passover. Oh my God, God forbid an Ashkenazi Jew that came from Russia will hear that I eat rice. Well, that's how we did it. Sephardic Jews ate rice on Passover. So we have friends that are loving to come to our house to be able to eat rice. Because Passover is a very limited menu. First of all, you have to eat for 7-8 days matzah, which makes you completely constipated. So you need to figure out what else to eat with matzah. So you spread on matzah chocolate, cream cheese. What we have done, basically, the Passover cuisine in Israel is fantastic. They have so many recipes how to deal with this. This will be interesting to taste, to have a beautiful, during Passover and Easter, to have something of a menu so we can taste each other's food. I mean, I think we're going to gain, this Tri-Faith initiative will make us fat. Will make all of us, God forbid, die from over cholesterol. So be careful. Did anyone talk to you or warn you about Jewish food? Oh, you guys are here for a journey. Okay, so continue. So it goes a little bit more about that those individuals that inform the authorities about Jewish traditions and Jewish customs. So it goes a little bit longer. Go to the next page, Nancy. Again, gives you years of crusades and difficulties. By then, Jewish-Christian relationship.
Okay. We're becoming increasingly bitter, and powerless Jews often held on to the negative interpretation as an act of quiet outrage.
Yeah, when you are a minority, you don't have weapons, you're not allowed to do anything, you develop quiet outrage. So it is possible that I'm sure it will happen. It will happen. We still have some Jews that have some resentment for Christians. We have a lot more Jews that feel resentment to Muslims. It is possible you'll encounter in conversations, because we need to dig into this. There's no way of bringing the communities together without discussing some of the dark episodes in the history of each community. You will still sense some outrage from some Jews, but not as much as in those years, those days. I mean, there was constantly pogroms and terrible things against Jews. So this was definitely a time of feeling this quiet outrage. Continue.
Okay, I just wanted to say, just suddenly I got this vision of frosting over a cake that has fallen apart, and you try to make it look good. So we can't just do that. We've got to.
Oh, beautiful. So one of the things that will happen in a true, pure initiative of bringing the faith communities together is to go to the difficult material, to go to the difficult stuff. There are definitely in Jewish text some things that I would love to burn that are describing you guys, Christians, not this church, not actually you, in terrible, but I want you to understand where the pain comes from. That text was created not ex nihilo, from nothing. It was created as a result of the experience of living as a minority in a Christian society. The same is true with Muslim, although the Muslims never went into crusades, journeys. I mean, the Muslims allowed the Jews to be unequal citizens, not to the level of Christianity. The Muslims never ask us to put yellow stars on our clothes to be able to identify us as Jews. So it'll be amazing what we can do if we do it the right way. Eric and I have done work on difficult texts that you guys have and we have. So we did it in one of the when a rabbi, a minister, and an imam walk. Yeah, we have done it, and it was an amazing teaching tool for both of us. I cannot anymore erase chapters of the Bible, but there are chapters in our Torah that are definitely embarrassing about Joshua, especially the Joshua period, where they conquered the promised land and slaughtered and killed everyone. But even the story of Purim, we never do it in Purim because we have little children in the audience with costumes. You know what happened after Haman was killed? So not only Haman was hanged and all his 10 kids, but then the Jews went and have a party by slaughtering 45,000 people. We never read this. That's the story of the Megillah, the book of Esther. When you go home today, read the book of Esther because it's in your Bibles. Read the book of Esther all the way to the end.
We left that out of our Sunday school lesson on Esther.
Everyone lives it out. Yeah. The Jews live it out. Yeah, so I don't have the permission to start erasing huge chapters of my Torah. That's not in the Torah, that's in the Bible, the Jewish Bible. The book of Esther was added later. So I can do it because I treat my Torah as a holy scriptures. But I can definitely talk about the text and try to offer explanations why the text is so bitter. If I need to put the promised land as part of the Jewish ideology and theology, I need to explain what we did to all the people that live there. By the way, you have to do, no one talks about Native Americans anymore. You guys don't apologize for that. You guys don't apologize for putting them in casino place and then go and lose your money there. What about the level of alcohol in those places? What do we do? What did we do to generations of Native Americans? We all have difficult things that we need to deal with. And you have to deal with it seriously. You can't just invite a Native American to read a prayer in Thanksgiving service. Come on. What a bullshit is that? Yeah, we all are guilty of doing those kind of things. Okay. Nancy, go to in the Sephardic world.
Okay, in the Sephardic world.
Remember now, so the world is divided in Jewish history to the Sephardic world, which is Spain, Portugal, Holland, North Africa, all of North Africa countries. This is the Sephardic world. Yemen too. Yemen is also considered Sephardic. So Sephardic are Jews that lived in some Arab countries, Jews of Spain and Portugal, Holland, so Dutch Jews. Those are the Sephardic Jews. So what happened in the Sephardic world?
Okay, it was retained. I think you talked earlier about something being eliminated.
Yeah.
What?
But this was retained. Okay, now he will explain because.
Okay, because probably because the offending interpretation had never gotten as far as Spain, and accusations against Jews on account of it were an Ashkenazi phenomenon. Sephardic Jews saw no reason to get rid of it. On the current status.
Wait.
Okay.
So the prayer about thanking God for not being a Gentile, that came from the Ashkenazi world. So that's Russia, Poland, Belarusia, all of the hundreds border changes in history that they went through. Every morning there was a different border in those countries. You didn't know where you belonged to. Okay, so this is one thing I wanted to do. Go now to go to page 135. So we're going to look now at Aleinu in the Talmud. It says gray. You see gray in the front page? Or the page where we started reading the text. She is a professor in Hebrew Union College, gray. She's a Talmud professor. Again, what is Talmud? Let's see if you remember. I taught you this already. Come on, guys. What is the Talmud?
It's the writings of the rabbis' interpretations
Of what?
of the Torah.
Okay. What period of writing? Talmud is 200 CE to 600 CE. Those writings took place all in the diaspora, although there was a small group of Jews living in Palestine. The Jews never left Palestine. There was always few families. Sometimes they numbered 1,500 people that stayed there, even after the destruction of the Second Temple. In the year 70, the Second Temple was destroyed. Most of the Jews were exiled. There was still a community that never left. So sometimes when you hear arguments from the Muslim community about that Jews were never there, Jews always had a remnant in Palestine. Small remnant, but still a remnant that created the Palestinian Talmud. A Talmud that was, so we Jews have two Talmuds. One that is not fully developed is the Palestinian one, because there were not a lot of Jews and not a lot of schools there. And the one, when we say Talmud, it's usually the Babylonian Talmud. So 200 CE to 600 CE. And it comes to interpret the Mishnah that start interpreting the Bible. So you have Bible, you have Torah, Bible, then you have Mishnah that has the beginning of the development of the arguments about understanding the Torah, and then the Talmud that is full-blown, many volumes of Talmud. And the one that is very well known is the Sansino Talmud. So those are the Italian printing family, the Sansino in Italy, few hundred years after the Talmud was written, and they had a printing house, and they are the one that printed, so it's known the Sansino Talmud. What?
Spell it.
With a lot of S's and C's. Sansino. Don't do this to me.
So I have forgotten now what the term is for all the writings that are current and
All the writings, a
collections.
Jewish headache. That's what it is. No, we call it Jewish text.
Okay, well, the stories, what was it? I was
Oh,
reading
oh.
a couple of.
Just a second. Okay, so you have the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha, there's Christian Apocrypha, Muslim Apocrypha, and Jewish Apocrypha. Those are stories that didn't make it into the Old Testament, New Testament, or the Quran. So every religion has other stories that, of course, because of the political structure of why would I include losing Gospels? The Gospels that didn't make it into the New Testament. What am I doing with that? Oh, I keep them. I still, if I have respect for them, although we know that the Vatican is keeping some of the Gospels without showing anyone, because there are more stories about Jesus that they were not excited about sharing with you. And this Pope actually is opening now some of the archives to the Vatican. God bless him. Because the Vatican not only kept Christian text, they kept text that is Jewish text. So it is possible there will be in the archives of the Vatican Jewish texts, written by Jewish writers, that got lost there are, in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, there are 4 books that are mentioned that we don't have any record where they are. So there is a book that says, so it says, and the rest of the story of the war is in the book of the Yashar. We don't know where the book is. It is possible that maybe the book is someplace that will reveal that one line, that all the rest of the story is in that book. So there are 4 of them mentioned in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses. I would love to find them. You know how the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, for example. Well, what is the story of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Shepherd boy or boy in fields.
A shepherd boy took some stones to play a little bit and throw them at the opening of a cave in the Judean desert. He heard something break. He broke vessels that the scrolls were hidden in. By the way, they have the best weather for keeping scrolls untouched. Have you ever been in the Judea desert? Oh, take a trip there. Take a trip in the summer and in the winter. It's so warm, it's unbelievable. So the scrolls were kept. What is in the scroll? In some of the scrolls are text of the book of Isaiah, text of other books in the Bible, but in addition, there are the scrolls of the text of the community that live next to the Dead Sea. There were people that ran away from Jerusalem when the Romans came and put a siege on Jerusalem, and they went to the Dead Sea. Dead Sea had hundreds of caves. We had a scholar in Omaha, Dr. Richard Freund. I don't know if you remember the name, but he gave a lot of lectures. And he is in search for the items that were part of the rituals in the temple in Jerusalem. He believes that there are caves in, you guys remember Spielberg movie?
Oh, yeah.
What was this? It is possible the original menorah, that maybe was a replica of the menorah, was there. Maybe he believes that there are special brooms that clean the ashes after the sacrifice were done on the altar. So he's looking for brooms, because we know they existed, that a high priest and the Levites were cleaning the ashes. So it is possible it's one of those caves. And so there's a lot of scholars, both Christian and Jews, that are very interested in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And when you go to Jerusalem and you visit the Jerusalem Museum, in the middle of the Jerusalem Museum there is this building with special temperature to be able to keep one of the scrolls, and it's a beautiful building. You walk around and you can read in Hebrew the scroll that was kept there. So who knows what else is hidden in those caves? By the way, anytime there is an expedition to do it, join that expedition. You never know what you can discover. Doing archaeology in Israel for half a day is the most fascinating thing. Yeah, I love when you guys are all excited about finding some broken glass from 200 years ago in Nebraska. Are you kidding? You walk on the streets of Jerusalem and you're walking on streets that King David walked in. You walk in Jerusalem or other parts in Israel and you walk with a Bible. You bring a Bible with you because every page of the Bible, you're there. The story of where the war was, where the prophet prophesied. You go through the 14 stations of Via Dolorosa and you get a feeling of where Jesus was. And then you get to a church and then you discover the challenges Because there's one church that 4 different denominations of Christianity believes that Jesus is buried in their part of the church. And of course, every part has a gift shop. Yeah, bring money for gift shops. I'm so happy that we don't know where Moses was buried. I can imagine the gift shop at his grave. Oh my God. And then you can create the Disneyland feeling by having all kind of stuff happening there. Okay, let's continue with Gray. Who is reading Gray? Please. Anyone? Loud?
134.
The first page, 134, and then we'll have to move to 142. Anyone, please?
We must praise the master of all, the
Call both, 13th or 14th century. So she believes that that phrase was added to the prayer, and it's added from the 13th or 14th century. Continue.
records a tradition according to which the biblical Joshua instituted the
Recitation
of Alanu.
Aleinu. So she says, Joshua, the disciple of Moses, is the one that instituted the prayer that we're discussing, Aleinu. Go on.
After conquering Jericho.
Yeah, after Jericho, he was so delighted about the victory in Jericho. You know what happened? He circled Jericho 7 times, and guess what happened? The walls came down. Yeah, I don't understand why he wants to build a wall with Mexico. It will be so easy to keep it down. We just have a bunch of people circling it 7 times. That wall will also disappear. All right, go on. Sorry.
That claim is supported by finding Hoshea, a variant version of Joshua's name.
You see the closeness of Jesus, Yeshua, to Joshua. Okay, continue.
Encoded in the prayer. The last letter of Hoshea Ayan comes from the first letter of we must.
Aleinu. So the same letter of the end of the name of Yehoshua, Joshua, is the letter that opens the prayer Aleinu. The same letter. So she assumes then, as a result of going through the Talmud and the Rabbi is talking about this, that this is the connection. Go on.
The second to the last letter of Hoshea Shin
Shin, the letter Shin.
comes from the first letter of the thought following.
Now you have to move to 142.
Shalom Psalm did not make babe. The second letter of Hoshea is the first letter of Va'ana Nu, we bow down. And finally,
So basically, what is she doing? She's just offering the connection between the letters of the prayer and the author of when it was written. Of course, there are scholars that disagree with her, but that's what you do. Go on.
and finally, the path which Hosea begins is from through Alanu.
Aleinu, yeah.
He is our God.
Okay, so she makes the correlation. Go on.
According to R. Joel Sirk's 1561 to 1640.
Look at this. You see why we have so much Jewish text? Because we kept everything. And so this guy is writing between 1561 and 1640. And guess what? We have the text. So when a couple comes to me, for example, and asking me if they can hire a woman to become a woman for rent, having a child from that woman. So they ask me the question, Rabbi, Is it okay or not okay? What is the role of the rabbi in Judaism?
Interpreter.
Teaching. So what I do is, I need to look at, it's like a cake, layer cake. You know, when we were young, and the mother will say, don't touch, the cake is for the guests. And of course she left the house and we went after the cake. And what did we do with the cake? We started from the sweet part. You can't just scrap, you can't just deal with how you feel as a rabbi nowadays. It's not about you. You need to bring material from previous generations to be able to spread that text in front of the couple and to talk about. You can say, do whatever you feel. Are you kidding? Do whatever you feel is the wrong answer on the part of a clergy, any clergy. Because it's not just about here and now. They are coming and asking questions that needs to be addressed seriously. Because if they're already making the attempt to ask you a question, you need to be able to provide them with the material so they can make a decision that is an educated decision. It's not about whatever you feel. By the way, when our kids come and ask us serious questions, I hope we go through a serious conversation before we tell them those are the options, and not just do whatever you want. Do whatever you want is not religious answer to anything. Yes. By the way, I want to explain how this question came about. So I had couples that came from New York on a train when I was in Baltimore to go to Hopkins, because Hopkins was the hospital that did all kind of experiments about fertility and other issues. So they will come, the Orthodox couples, and they will come with a note in Hebrew from their rabbi that they needed to present to the physician in Hopkins. And so most of those physicians didn't speak Hebrew. So I was the translator. I will go with them to the doctors in Hopkins and explain and translate what the rabbi wrote in his letter to the physician to make sure that the physician knows what he needs to be aware, especially in the way he's going to touch the woman. So that was one issue. The other issue about how to do the artificial insemination, how to be careful in the clothing piece. It was a fascinating world. They came on a train from New York, and they are dressed like Orthodox women, all covered. And so we needed to find some nurses to do some of the work. It was just a different world from the world of liberal Judaism, where no one asks you those kind of questions. Yeah.
To add to that, the only tradition that I am aware of in the United States that is even remotely close to that is what historians do in this sense that you've been offering us, and that is that everyone brings a different interpretation to the event. And that way the interpretations may be covering different periods or different premises.
Or different event.
Or different events. And so this is what allows open discussion, because each position is unique in itself that causes the exposure and expression.
Well, that's what hopefully you understand now what I try to do. I mean, I think the reason why it's so complicated moving through the pages is because you have 7 people that reflect on the same text, and each of them is coming from a different point of view, and this allows exactly what the doctor said, which is for that discussion, because some of you found some interpretations more appealing than others, more maybe easier to understand. But some of them require a struggle through the intellect of what exactly this is all about. And hopefully at all my teaching in the last 6 weeks, I didn't offend anyone. I mean, this is a text that needs to be put there in front of you. And a serious discussion took place after you guys slowly got warmed up. There was a tough winter, and you guys still were able to melt. But this is exactly in future classes that hopefully I'll have the chance to do. I'll do the same. You'll never see one piece of evidence ever in any of my teachings. That's what I have done for so many years as a rabbi. And I think it creates a more intense, legitimate reviews of the text by bringing those different faces. Because there are so many faces. And I only brought 7 here. There's a way of going and having more, but it's too much. Okay, let's continue with what she said, what Grace saying. According to this Rabbi Joel, what is he saying from Poland?
Aleinu is a theological summary at the end of the service, reminding us of God's unity and the ultimate goals of eradicating idolatry. We now say it at the end of every service, but some medieval authorities relegated it to the evening service,
Ma'ariv. So there are names for each of the service. Morning service, it's called Shacharit. Ma'ariv is the evening one. Go on.
Its future-oriented and
Eschatological
focus seemed especially appropriate to the end of the day's prayers, when we naturally anticipate the next day and should think confidently about God's ultimate triumph over idolatry.
Yeah, you do it at night before you go to sleep. This prayer. This prayer is traditionally in every morning, afternoon, and evening prayer. We Jews, according to tradition, prayed 3 times a day because Abraham did it in the morning. Remember Abraham? How do I know that Abraham did it in the morning? How do I know that he prayed in the morning? Because it says on the day that he took Isaac, he got early in the morning. He got early in the morning because he didn't want the wife, Sarah, to know what he's doing, taking his son to be killed, slaughtered. So, hey, if it was morning, he must pray before he left. So the morning prayer is assigned to Abraham. The afternoon prayer is assigned to Isaac. How do I know that? Because he saw Rebekah on a camel in the afternoon. That's when he fell in love with. That means that he prayed to be able to see her. And evening is Jacob. What happened with Jacob? Remember, he found a stone to put it in the back at night. That's the night that he had a dream of the stairway to heaven. So that's how I know that the patriarchs prayed. Each of them prayed a prayer. Oh, if the patriarch did it, it's upon me to do it too. That's how we make a justification to how many times to pray. It is possible Abraham got in the morning and went to the washroom and did not pray. What do we know? But this is how you connect between patriarchs and matriarchs and your life today. You still mention it. Every time we pray, we mention the patriarchs, and we liberal Jews added the matriarchs, thank God. Now there is a movement of adding the concubines. Jacob had, what did he do with the concubines? Jacob had, in addition to the 2 women he married, he had Zilpah and Orpah. He had other 2 women. How come we got him out of the tradition? So there are people in liberal Judaism now that are trying to find a way to add also the concubines. Because we need to do something also with the 2 handmaids that helped deliver the Jewish boys in Egypt. We honor them. They were Egyptians that helped the Israelite women to give birth in a time of persecution. So they are honored in Jewish tradition. We're honoring also the daughter of Pharaoh. Of course, she got immediately, she must be Jewish. Why would the Egyptian daughter of Pharaoh will not kill Jewish kids? She was Jewish. So we have a Jewish name for her, Batia, the daughter of God. We gave them bat mitzvah, a daughter. Yah is a short version of God, Yahweh. So Batia, the name, if one day he's going to ask you in the show that is at 6:30 or 6 o'clock at night, what was the name of the daughter of Pharaoh? Batia, the daughter of God. She wasn't just Pharaoh. So it's interesting what's happening in our movement of paying attention to the voice of women in the Bible. Similar to what some Christians do with Mary. I mean, there are churches that Mary is at the center of the worship. It's fascinating. I love those kind of things. Continue, please.
His majestic abode, Moshav
Yekaro. So his majestic abode is in Hebrew, Moshav Yekaro. Go on.
Jacob ben Asher, 1269 to 1343, notes an alternative wording, his glorious seat,
Kiseh Kvodo. Yeah, Kiseh is a chair. Go on.
600 years later, Baruch Halabi Epstein, 1860 to 1942, favored his alternative because reference to a seat of glory is common in the Bible, but his abode of majesty is not, and he is suspected early Christians of introducing what we normally say, his abode of majesty.
Do you know if this is a Christian phrase? Maybe you lost it. Maybe it was there in the 14th, 15th century. Go on.
Nonetheless, in practice, he accepted the wording that had been handed down to him, his abode of majesty.
Now comes another phrase.
To perfect the world, perfecting the world is now almost universally known as
Tikkun Olam. Can you repeat after me? Because you're going to hear it a lot. Tikkun Olam. Olam is a world. Tikkun is mending, fixing. So, just a second. There are Jewish rituals of getting up at 5 minutes to 12 at night and having an evening prayer, because at that time God is closest to the earth. You didn't know that? That's why you cannot fall asleep sometimes, because you need to rise and pray to God at 12 o'clock at night. Stop taking those ambient pills. You have to stay awake. So midnight. So we do midnight on the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot is the holiday of the receiving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. So at night there's always a Tikkun Shavuot, the mending. So we created moments of being able to participate with God in mending the world in specific holidays. So you have a Tikkun Shavuot, the mending of Shavuot. This is when you're going to pray to God at 12 o'clock, because you and God can fix something broken at that time. Isn't there a sunrise services in Easter? When is the sunrise? Easter. Why? I am sure there is a tradition in Christianity of someone that copied maybe from Jewish tradition, that maybe God, they couldn't agree about 12 at night. So they did it in the morning. It's beautiful. Oh yeah, continue.
But this interpretation expands the concept beyond its original boundaries. In the Mishnah,
And they tell you where in the Mishnah. Go on.
specific acts of rabbinic legislation are designed to remedy equally specific social ills or legal injustices. These enactments are said to be to have been promulgated for tikkun olam,
Tikkun olam.
meaning the repair of particular undesirable situations.
That's it. You need to participate. This is where the partnership with God comes. You know, we rely on God. But what is my role? And that's why social justice is tikkun olam. Another word for social justice in Hebrew is mending the world. Mending the world for the sake of God and for our own sake. When we're noticing some social ills in society, we need to roll the sleeves and get into the mud. We can't expect God to be alone in the mud. We need to partner with God in being able to fix those social ills. Continue.
Elenu thus takes a concept that denoted only certain, but not all, rabbinic enactments and expands it to mean God's ultimate repair of the world. We commonly think of tikkun olam, perfecting the world, as a human project, but here it is presented as God's responsibility.
Yeah. It's so hard for us. So that's why the prayer is essentially praying to God as the one. Bayom ha'u, on that day, Adonai yeh echad, God will be one. It's taken from Elijah also. The last few words of Yom Kippur service, the Day of Atonement, Adonai hu Elohim, we recite 7 times a phrase, Adonai hu Elohim. God is God. 7 times. And that's how the Day of Atonement ends. And then everyone goes and eats. Waiting eagerly for the next Day of Atonement. Just kidding. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really believe that this move of yours is part of the